Have you ever noticed how some places just have this palpable energy, like a hum you can almost feel? And that's what comes to mind when I think about Bengaluru, the Silicon Valley of India, as everyone calls it. And the material we have for this deep dive, well, it really captures the city in this kind of constant state of motion. Like a snapshot of a place that's just changing so rapidly right in front of us.
Yeah, I totally agree. And what really struck me when I was going through the research was this push and pull the sources talk about, this duality. You have this city that people remember fondly as like this laid-back garden city, but now it's become this bustling metropolitan hub. It's really like a textbook case of rapid urban evolution, and it makes you think about all these different aspects of how cities grow and change and have to adapt.
Right. So, okay, let's unpack what really kicked off this transformation, right? The sources all kind of point back to the 1990s and what they call the IT revolution in India as the big catalyst. But what was it about Bengaluru specifically that made it the epicenter of this whole shift?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, the sources mention the IT revolution, but what's really interesting is trying to understand why Bengaluru became the place where it all happened. Like, it wasn't just random chance. There were these strategic advantages that the city already had.
Okay, yeah, like what?
So for one, you have this pre-existing foundation of really strong educational institutions, especially in science and engineering. We'll talk about those in a bit. But that meant there was already this pool of talented people ready to
All
go.
right, a workforce already in place.
Exactly. And then on top of that, you have the government policies at the time. The material doesn't go into too much detail there, but those early policies definitely played a role in helping the tech sector grow.
So it's like fertile ground in a way, just waiting for the right seed.
Kind of, yeah. And then you have the emergence of these pioneer companies. The sources name drop Infosys, Wipro, and TCS. These weren't just successful companies in isolation. They created the blueprint for an entire tech ecosystem that then, it started attracting global attention and investment. It's like they laid the first bricks on the road, so to speak.
And those first few bricks turned into like a super highway, right?
Right.
Because now if you say Indian startups, almost everyone immediately thinks of Bengaluru. The sources call it India's startup capital. And with thousands of startups popping up, it's hard to argue with that.
Yeah.
So what is it about Bengaluru's startup scene that makes it so, I don't know, so energetic?
Right. It's more than just the sheer number of startups. I think what sets Bengaluru apart is the energy of its startup ecosystem, that whole network of, the entrepreneurs themselves, the investors who are willing to take risks, the support systems like incubators and accelerators, and even just like a cultural acceptance of, trying things out and maybe
Oh
failing.
yeah, that whole fail fast, learn and try again mentality.
Exactly. And then you have the success stories, right? Companies like Flipkart, Swiggy, and Bijou's, these are all homegrown Bengaluru companies that are now like household names across India.
Mhm.
And their success just keeps fueling this cycle of innovation. They attract more investment, inspire other people to become entrepreneurs, and it creates this environment where new ideas can take root and flourish.
Which brings us right back to that foundational piece that the sources keep emphasizing. Education. These are big names we're talking about. IM, Bangalore, and then a whole bunch of top engineering colleges just pumping out a steady stream of skilled professionals. How crucial has that been to Bengaluru's success story? I mean, could this have happened without those institutions?
Oh, absolutely not. They are, without a doubt, central to everything that's happened. They provide the essential human capital, like the brain power that a tech sector needs to thrive. It's this really cool symbiotic relationship, right?
Okay.
Well, you have these world-class universities and colleges ensuring that there's a continuous supply of highly skilled graduates, right? People with degrees in like software engineering, data science, all those in-demand fields. And then on the flip side, you have the booming tech industry that's offering all these graduates amazing job opportunities. And those two forces together, well, that's what creates this powerful engine for growth.
Oh, I see. Like a feedback loop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to understand why Bengaluru became the tech hub, this link between a solid educational foundation and a dynamic industry, that's a key piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely. But this kind of rapid growth, I mean, as exciting as it all sounds, it can't all be smooth sailing, right? The sources are pretty upfront about the infrastructure challenges that come along with it, particularly that infamous traffic congestion. I mean, anyone who's even heard of Bengaluru knows about the traffic. What are the sources saying about the impact of all this congestion on daily life?
Yeah, I mean, They pretty much nail it when they call traffic congestion one of the biggest pain points of living in Bengaluru. It's the most visible symptom of this incredibly rapid urbanization that's happened. Basically, the infrastructure, the roads and transportation systems, they just haven't been able to keep up with the sheer number of people and vehicles pouring into the city.
So what does that look like practically?
Think like long commutes, congested roads, and travel times that are totally unpredictable. And all of that impacts everything. It affects people's productivity at work, their quality of life, and even the environment, because all those cars stuck in traffic are pumping out more emissions.
Right, so it's kind of a domino effect.
Totally. It's this huge challenge that the city is wrestling with every single day.
Now, the sources do talk about this major project that's supposed to help with that, the Bengaluru Metro project. They mention that there are new phases under development to expand it. So what's the hope? What kind of impact could this expansion have?
Yeah, the metro is a crucial long-term investment, right? The idea is to take some of the pressure off the roads by giving people this high-capacity public transportation option. And these new phases that are being built, they'll extend the metro lines to more parts of the city, so hopefully it'll provide some relief to all those commuters who are stuck in traffic every day. And, better connectivity in general is always a good thing.
Sure.
Now, is it going to be a magic bullet that fixes everything overnight? No, definitely not. But it's a big step in the right direction towards a more sustainable transportation system for the city.
Okay, makes sense. And it's not just about getting around the city, right? All this rapid growth has also put a strain on housing, just finding a place to live and being able to afford it. The sources talk about this surge in real estate prices, making housing affordability a real worry. How has this whole housing situation impacted Bengaluru, the people who live there?
Well, think about it. Bengaluru has become this really desirable place to live and work, right? The tech industry is booming, salaries are good, so naturally, tons of people want to move there. But that huge increase in demand, coupled with the fact that there's only so much land, especially in the prime areas, has driven up real estate prices like crazy.
A classic supply and demand problem.
Yeah. And as a result, housing affordability has become a huge concern. This hits lower and middle income folks especially hard. And if it's not addressed, it could change the whole social fabric of the city.
Right. It risks becoming a place only for the wealthy.
Exactly.
And then there's the environmental cost of all this development, which the sources also highlight. It's almost ironic, right? This city that used to be known as the Garden City is now dealing with these pretty serious environmental problems. What are some of the main issues that come up in the material?
Yeah, it's a bit of a paradox. And you're right, the rapid urbanization has definitely taken its toll on the environment. The sources are pretty clear about that. They talk about rising vehicular emissions and all the construction activities as major factors contributing to deteriorating air quality. And of course, that has serious health implications for the people living there.
Right. We all breathe the same air.
Exactly. Then there's the acute water shortage that Bengaluru is facing.
Oh, right. I remember reading about that. That sounds pretty dire.
It is. And according to the sources, it's happening because of over-extraction of groundwater, basically. We're using up the water faster than it can replenish itself, and the depletion of lakes, many of which have been encroached upon or polluted because of all the development.
Oh, wow. So less water coming in and more water going out.
Exactly. It's a dangerous combination that's really put the city's water security at risk.
And the sources also mentioned this issue of disappearing trees and green spaces. Obviously, that's not great aesthetically, but what are the broader implications of that? What happens when a city loses its green cover?
Well, for starters, trees are like natural air filters, right? They absorb pollutants from the air, which is especially important in a city like Bengaluru, where air quality is already an issue. Plus, they help regulate temperature and provide habitats for all sorts of plants and animals. So when they disappear, and the sources say it's happening because of rapid expansion, it just throws everything off balance.
Right, so less trees means hotter temperatures, worse air, and just a less healthy environment overall.
Pretty much. And the sources are right to point out that this trend raises serious concerns about sustainability. Can Bengaluru continue to grow at this pace without completely destroying its natural environment? That's the big question.
It's a good question, and not one with an easy answer. But okay, shifting gears a bit. It's pretty obvious that Bengaluru's success has made it this incredibly attractive place for people from all over India and even the world to move to. The sources talk about how it draws in people seeking work and education, and the result is this incredibly diverse population. What would you say are the biggest drivers of this migration?
Well, the most obvious one is jobs, right? The
Yeah.
thriving job market, especially in IT and the startup scene. You have all these multinational corporations and innovative companies that are hungry for talent, so they're offering really competitive salaries and benefits. And when you combine that with the prestigious educational institutions that are already there, well, it makes Bengaluru this magnet for skilled professionals, not just from all over India, but from beyond as well.
So it's like a brain drain from other places.
Yeah, kind of. And this influx of people has transformed the city. The sources call it a true melting pot of cultures, which definitely adds to its vibrancy and energy.
That makes sense. But all these people moving to Bengaluru, that has to put even more strain on the city's resources and infrastructure, right? I mean, we've already talked about the traffic and the housing crunch.
Oh, absolutely. Every new person who arrives means more demand for housing, transportation, water, sanitation, everything. So while it's great for the economy, it also means the city has to be really smart about planning and investing in its infrastructure if it wants to accommodate all this growth sustainably.
Makes sense. And the sources do mention that while the high salaries are definitely a draw for a lot of people, the cost of living, particularly rent, has also skyrocketed. So is moving to Bengaluru always the dream come true that it seems?
Not necessarily. It's a trade-off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there are high-paying jobs, especially in tech, but the rising cost of living, particularly rent, eats into a lot of that extra income. It can be a real struggle, especially for people who are just starting out or who aren't in those high-paying roles.
So the city needs to find ways to make it more livable for everyone, not just the high earners.
Exactly. If they want to keep attracting talented people, they have to address these affordability challenges. Things like affordable housing initiatives and sustainable urban planning are going to be key.
Absolutely. So zooming out a bit, the sources really emphasize Bengaluru's role as this major international business hub. They talk about how it hosts offices of some of the biggest multinational corporations, or MNCs. What does that tell us about Bengaluru's place in the global economy?
It tells us that it's a serious player. I mean, when you have companies like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and Tesla setting up shop in a city, it means they see it as a strategic location, right?
Hmm.
They're recognizing the city's skilled workforce, its innovative spirit, and its business-friendly environment. And that global presence, it just reinforces Bengaluru's reputation on the international stage and attracts even more investment and opportunities.
Right, so it's like a snowball effect.
Totally. Success breeds more success.
And it's not just about having offices there, right? The sources highlight how Bengaluru is a center for research and innovation, with numerous R&D centers. How does that contribute to its global standing?
It shows that Bengaluru is not just outsourcing work, it's creating new knowledge and driving progress. I mean, these R&D centers are doing cutting-edge work in all sorts of fields, so the city is making a real contribution to the global technology landscape.
So it's not just taking advantage of the IT boom, it's shaping the future of technology.
Exactly, and that focus on research and innovation is crucial for its long-term success. You can't just rest on your laurels. You have to keep pushing forward. And the sources suggest that Bengaluru is doing just that. They talk about continued dominance in the global business landscape fueled by continued investments in these key areas.
Okay, so looking ahead, what kind of future do the sources envision for Bengaluru? Are there any specific strategies or plans in place to address some of the challenges we've talked about?
Yeah, they mentioned these smart city initiatives that are being implemented, which basically means using technology and data to improve the way the city functions. So things like public transport, waste management, and energy efficiency. These are all areas where they're trying to find smarter, more sustainable solutions.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So using tech to solve the problems created by tech.
Yeah, in a way.
And that-
And of course, the tech sector itself is constantly evolving. The sources talk about all the exciting developments happening in AI, automation, and deep tech, which suggests that Bengaluru is going to stay on the cutting edge of the global tech industry.
So still at the forefront of innovation.
Absolutely. And the city's strong talent pool and all those R&D centers, well, that puts it in a prime position to be a leader in these emerging fields, which will drive even more economic growth and change in the years to come.
But it all circles back to that core challenge, right? The one that the sources keep coming back to. How do you balance all this amazing progress with the need to protect the environment and ensure that development happens in a sustainable way?
Yeah, that's the crux of it. Can Bengaluru have its cake and eat it too? Can it continue to grow and thrive economically without sacrificing its environment and the well-being of its people? That's the million-dollar question. And the sources are right to emphasize that this challenge, ensuring that Development does not come at the cost of environmental degradation. That's what's going to determine the fate of the city.
No pressure, Bengaluru. Well, as we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear that this is one dynamic city full of energy and potential. It's this fascinating mix of, as the sources put it, tradition meets modernity, where there's tons of opportunity, but also a whole lot of challenges to tackle. And there's no denying the impact that Bengaluru has had on India's growth story. It's a key piece of the puzzle.
I agree. Bengaluru is like a microcosm of the 21st century city. It's grappling with all the complexities and opportunities that come with rapid urbanization, and the choices it makes are going to be watched by cities all over the world that are facing similar pressures.
Totally. And on that note, here's something for you, our listeners, to ponder as you go about your day. Think about everything we've discussed about Bengaluru, this incredible story of growth and change. Now think about other cities around the world that are going through similar transformations. Do you see parallels? Differences? What can we learn from Bengaluru's journey? How can we apply those lessons to make our own cities more sustainable and livable for everyone? That's the conversation we need to keep having. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. It's been a fascinating journey.
I agree. Thanks for having me.